What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Mind Time, the mini-series on mental health presented by It's All Her. My name is Amy Louise Ruffle, and I'll be your host as we talk to some of our favourite people to celebrate Mental Health Month. And now, before I introduce today's guest, I, of course, must remind you, like I have done the past 4 episodes, I'm still not a doctor, and neither is my guest. We are just speaking from our own personal experiences, and for any tailored specific advice, we encourage you to seek out professional help, as there is so much support and assistance out there available to you. Okay, business done. I can now introduce today's guest, who I am really, really excited to have on the podcast. He is, I'm just going to use a bunch of describing words, co-creator, co-founder, contributor, I'm hoping he's nodding along to these, of Mendel, which is a non-profit social enterprise that raises awareness for men's mental health through their fashion label, and an athlete as well. So please welcome to your ears, Mitch Hannan.
Pleasure, Amy. Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, well, did I get any of those describing words right?
Oh, of course. Yeah, probably. I went over the top with a couple of them. I'd happily just go down as co-founder, but no, appreciated the kind words.
Excellent. Now, how we start this podcast, every week we just ask our guests, how are you, but not the how are you in the way that you're just trying to get out of that pleasantry conversation and move on. Like, for reals, how are you today?
Today I'm feeling reasonably good. I've come off the back of what's been a bit of a rough week, and in hindsight, a bit of a roller coaster over the last month. So there's been a lot happening in a short space of time, which is can be a good thing. But at the present time, in the last week, I've had a lot of time to sort of reflect and sort of have a look back at the month that was. And I've come off the back of a little bit of shoulder surgery. So I'm glad to be at the back end of that sort of pain cycle. But no, happy to be back in my own home and things are looking up. So yeah, I feel like I'm going pretty well today.
Okay, well, very glad to hear that. I guess you've had quite a different experience than a lot of people here in Melbourne, where you kind of haven't been in your own home as opposed to all of us only being in our own home. So how has that been, having to sort of move at the drop of a hat and being shipped around the country constantly?
Yeah, it takes definitely a level of flexibility and resilience, I think, to be able to, I guess, drop things that, like you said, at the drop of a hat and move on. I was working out this the other day, actually. I think I've spent more time in hotel rooms than my own bedroom in the last 18 months. So wow. That shows you the amount of sort of moving around I've had to do in regards to life with footy. But I guess looking back on it, I feel quite lucky to be able to have a little element of travel and excitement attached to my lifestyle with the last 18 months in regards to what the majority of my friends and family have had to go through with the Melbourne lockdowns. So yeah, it's been a definite journey that was never expected, I guess, like anyone sort of reflecting on their time during COVID, but I feel like I've come out quite fortunately.
When you're on the road, is there anything that you sort of do in like a hotel room or something to try and make it feel somewhat homely, or do you have like a routine to make yourself comfortable in a new place?
Yeah, I am big on sort of routines just in my day-to-day life as it is, and I guess the hotel living throws that out a little bit, but I am a sort of avid coffee drinker, and that's sort of, I guess, a routine that I've tried to sort of keep a hold of is my mornings. I feel like they're very much important to starting your day off on the right foot, and whether it be just a little kitchenette or a hotel that's got a sort of a full kitchen setting, I've tried to make the most of getting up at the same time every day, roughly around 6:30, making my coffee. You'd be surprised, obviously being from Melbourne, I'm not too much of a coffee snob. I pleasantly enjoy just an instant coffee as well. So
interesting, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, try to get up roughly around the time of sunrise, make myself a coffee, and kind of tick off some of my general admin sort of life things before sort of leaping into the day. So I guess that kind of gives you an element of consistency in what's been a sort of a bit of a tumultuous sort of year, I guess. Unpredictable
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, controlling right. The few things that you can control. I do have a question, unrelated but related, on the coffee. Because I'm also not a coffee snob, but from Melbourne, and so there's a very small community of us.
Yes.
But what is your instant coffee of choice?
Oh, I'm going to go with one that is just recently come out, and it's probably going to come across as a little bit of a plug, but I'm more than happy to do it. But one of my good friends, Ed Langdon, who's he's a fellow, an ex-teammate from Melbourne. He's just brought out his own brand of instant coffee.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called Lay Day, and he's probably just trying to put a new spin on the coffee lifestyle that people live who might not have the luxuries of a coffee machine or the money to be able to afford those $5 coffees daily, but putting a bit of a premium on the taste of it as well. So, if anyone listening out there should check out Lay Day coffee.
All right, you're putting my Moccona to shame. And despite current conversation, this is not a coffee podcast. This is a series mainly covering mental health. And so my question for you is just, what has your experience or relationship to mental health been prior to this sort of tumultuous 18 months?
Yeah, it's been an interesting one at times, an intimate one, obviously, where I've had to sort of prioritise it as the most important thing in my immediate life. For me, my sort of journey with mental health began in my early 20s. I was, at the time, going through university, studying architecture, and at times found myself quite overwhelmed with the workload that's involved in folio-based subjects where you're just sort of putting hours and hours in end. And my initial sort of, dealings with what was a panic attack at the time was something that was completely foreign to me. I didn't really know what was going on, and I'd almost got myself to a point where I felt like I needed to go to hospital. But that sort of little inkling of not knowing what was going on sort of, I guess, was the beginning of sort of the better understanding of my own mental health. And from there, as a young kid, it's sort of, you very much try to put things to the wayside and carry on in life and try and brush it off. But then it wasn't until a time in 2018 where I was faced with probably what I see as the hardest part of my life in regards to dealing with my mental health. And I was going through some things at the time that were sort of family related, relationship related, and some pressures obviously in the footy landscape. And in hindsight, these are nothing that's of any magnitude that would sort of, I guess, if they were dealt with in isolation, cause too much concern. But at the time, I found it to be really overwhelming, and that's when I sort of realised I needed to, prioritise my mental health and put it first. So. Yeah,
when there's a few things at once, it can be hard to sift through them, and just the sheer volume of it, not necessarily what they are in isolation, but the fact that it's all on top of you at once can be really, really hard.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And for me, it was a tricky one because being in the public eye with the footy world, I was very keen at the time to try and keep it under wraps and keep it as close to my chest as possible. Whereas we all sort of know that, trying to be as open and honest with how you're feeling and getting the conversation flowing with those that are around you is probably the first step in regards to getting on the road to feeling yourself again.
Yeah, absolutely. So just going back a second, you said when you were younger, you had something that you feel like was resembling panic attacks. Mm-hmm. How did that manifest for you? Were there physical symptoms, or what was that experience like?
Yeah, there were very much physical symptoms, which is quite commonly in the case for people that are experiencing a panic attack. I had a sort of a bit of a racing heart and sweaty palms and this sort of overwhelming feeling of doom. I guess something was about to happen, even though where I was at the time was of no concern. I was in a safe space. I might have been at uni. I might have been at home. So you sort of, when you're feeling yourself, you're aware that you're in a place that's quite comfortable. But at that time, you're sort of, bursting to get out of your skin and try and escape and find answers. And for that period of time that you are experiencing a panic attack is extremely frightening. So I can definitely resonate with anyone that's going through it at the moment or has gone through it as a really scary period or thing to go through.
So what did you do to get out of those situations?
Yeah. So I let it probably bubble away for quite a few years, and they would intermittently happen at times through my early adolescent life. But then, like I said, it wasn't until a time until 2018 where things kind of hit a tipping point where I sort of realised I needed to do something about it. The panic attacks themselves is something that is quite a, like you said, is quite a physical thing. So there's a few things you can do sort of within yourself in regards to some breathing techniques and some guided meditation in regards to bringing those symptoms down, which is the first step in regards to lowering your sort of heart rate and gaining control of just the way you're thinking and processing things rather than being in that sort of fight or flight kind of mindset. So that's the, I guess, in terms of those trying to make sure that you're on top of those panic attacks. That's the first thing that sort of was implemented within myself in regards to managing them. But then there's a lot of other things that you can do ongoingly to sort of make sure that you're sort of prioritizing the way you're feeling.
And so in 2018, when it seems like all of this stuff was kind of coming to a head and maybe getting to a point where it wasn't super manageable for your day-to-day life, how did you step out of that, I guess, fear of being honest and speaking out? Like you said, you kind of wanted to keep it under wraps and not really talk about it. Like, how did you break through that in order to then be able to move forward with it?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't like a breaking through kind of moment. It was, I probably tipped a point where it was affecting my day-to-day life so much that I had no other option but to do something about it.
Right.
I was genuinely struggling to get out of bed in the mornings. I was not productive. I was looking for any routes of escape from anything that's quite normal in your day-to-day life, sort of social interactions I was avoiding. I was avoiding going to work. And obviously being in a footy environment, it's quite noticeable when you sort of take a period of absence. So, it probably wasn't something that I had to overcome. It was something that I just had to face head on due to the level that I sort of let it get to in the end. So I guess from that point on, that's where it sort of hit a point where I started to engage some external support and lean on some close friends and family around me at the time, just to sort of, I guess, pull me back together.
Okay, and so your community sounds like it was like a really important part of that. Was there any professional help involved, or purely just getting the stuff out of your head that you'd kept in there for so long?
It was a combination of both, and I can definitely vouch for some professional help as a valued part of your therapy in terms of managing your mental health. But my first steps were talking to, you said, like my community, my mum in particular, my ex-partner at the time, my sisters, and also Mark, who you know of. He's also the other co-founder of Mendel. And these sort of relationships that you have with people, I guess, in hindsight after these sort of periods, probably strengthened from moments like from that. But I'm forever grateful for some of those conversations I had with those people. But yeah, the external support is up there as well in regards to speaking with someone who is a professional in this space, in regards to, I guess, just dissecting the thoughts and feelings that you're having and making you sort of realise that these are quite common in society and slowly getting more and more accepted amongst the community. And there is ways to sort of to get out of it, help yourself, and get back on the path to feeling yourself.
Yeah, and that it is like a fluctuating, ever-changing thing. And I think sometimes it can feel like, oh, I'm going to be like this forever or feel this way forever. And there's such a peace in knowing that like it isn't going to stay that way and that you will feel good again and you will have downtimes again, but they're not permanent. Yes,
exactly right. And I feel like when you hear that coming from some family and friends, it's easy for you to go, of course you're going to say that because you're trying to make me feel better and so forth. But
right.
when you hear it from someone externally who is a professional and they've been there before and done it before and they know what you're going through, that is quite comforting to know that they feel like that there's a path out for you and the feelings that you're going through at the time are not long lasting.
Mm-hmm. And so then throw COVID into the mix. What has that done to your mental health? Like, has that changed in the past 18 months at all for you?
Of course, I think it's probably thrown up all sorts of challenges for everyone in the community in regards to how they're feeling and what they're going through, and myself included. I'm not immune to the changes that we've all had to deal with over the last 18 months. Although I'd like to think that I've got myself in a good place where I feel like I'm quite resilient and well-versed and trained in managing my mental health. It throws up all sorts of curveballs. What this last 18 months of living, and I've definitely had to adapt in regards to the way I converse with my family and friends. So like everyone's coping mechanisms are different, but for me, being able to just talk to some of my close mates, especially in person, was one of the biggest things for me. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously to a degree been stripped away over the last 18 months. That one-on-one sort of chats with someone in the flesh, and having to have that translate to things like this over video was something that really took some adapting for me, because you feel a little bit disconnected from the emotions involved in some of those deeper sort of conversations.
100%.
But yeah, I think it's something you learn to deal with. You learn to sort of the little tips and tricks that you've got in place for when you feel like you may be in a little point of crisis, need to be sort of prioritised just due to the ever-changing sort of nature of where you might be going, or the ways you have to live. So things like that are things that have had to evolve just for me to be able to sort of keep myself in check.
Yeah, you're right. As much as we are currently recording on a Zoom or video type call, and it's fine and necessary because it's what we have, but there's just, you lose that magic that is in-person conversation. And so I hope at least one little silver lining of all of this is people actually having to recognize how important that is and how much they value seeing people and having the ability to connect with your community in that way.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I'm hoping, I'm sure over time as we work our way back out into the world that when those interactions do come with people, whether it be over a coffee or with a psychologist one-on-one in person or a family member and stuff like that, that people will begin to appreciate the value in and then those sort of connections and conversations with people when you can sort of have those chats face to face.
Absolutely. And hopefully we're just not going to be scared of legs, because I feel like I never see people's legs. It's just all top half.
It's just been the back end of winter as well, so everyone's all rugged up and you're just used to just seeing people on a screen. So it'll be nice to see people out and about in the parks, in pubs and bars and restaurants again. It's
that is one I guess you being back in Melbourne, you see this now, is just how many picnics are happening, and there's just something so wholesome about people socializing by a picnic, because it's just grassroots, really simple. There's no flashy things. It's just people doing core people things. And so it's really nice to see those moments, and that in all of this, humanity still prevails. It's really beautiful.
Exactly right. It's like you said, those connections that we build through life are one of the more important things in regards to looking after your sanity. So it's nice to sort of see images. I've been away for a little while, but just people in the parks and interacting and throwing a frisbee and just sort of, I guess, bringing back that connection that's been lost for so long. So
yeah, the park games are it's getting competitive out there. I don't know, what would be your park game specialty?
Oh, I absolutely love a frisbee throw. I've got about 4 or 5 of them. Those ones that have got the huge hole in the middle that just go for hundreds of meters. But if I had to say something else apart from that,
see, frisbees terrify me, because especially when there's so many people out picnicking and I don't perhaps have the control over it that you do. So I need land-based games to be safe.
That is true. I guess that's probably a common one, but Finska's always a good bit of fun as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you've got so much to look forward to this summer.
Exactly right.
So if someone is not in the picnic stage and they're sort of still going through a bit of a challenging time, what is something that you would pass on to them to give them some advice while they're going through it?
Well, obviously it depends, I guess, what stage they're at in their battles with their mental health and so forth. I feel like if you're in the early stages, it's about being able to sort of control the controllables and prioritise the things that make you happy. So getting a routine-based morning, getting up, making sure that the 4 pillars of just general health are there, which I feel are getting adequate sleep, eating nice and healthy food, getting nice, good amounts of exercise in, so physical activity and getting the endorphins going, and then connections. So making sure that at least once a day you're reaching out to family or friends, loved ones, and doing something like this, a video chat, rather than just a phone call even, so you can sort of see them, see their face, see how they're going and so forth. just prioritizing those sort of things in terms of your well-being. And then in regards to if there's something's a little bit more pressing, I couldn't stress enough how good it is to be able to sort of, I guess, try and overcome that level of sort of, find that level of vulnerability within yourself to be able to sort of have that first initial chat with someone like a friend or a family member, because that'll probably be one of the things that puts you right back on the path to feeling yourself, whether the family member takes the reins for you and puts you in contact with someone who's a professional in this space, or even if they're the shoulder that you just needed in regards to voicing how you've been feeling, what you've been going through, what your worries are. It's all about having the courage to be able to speak up, I think.
Yeah, and you're right. It is like the most courageous thing to do. It's so frustrating that for so long it was seen as a weakness to admit that you were, maybe not okay, whereas it is so powerful and strong to do that. And just saying a thing out loud, I think, makes it a lot less hard to deal with than just leaving it in your head.
Yeah, exactly right. It is, vulnerability is extremely hard to sort of, I guess, put into practice at times in regards to being open and honest with how you're actually going. But like you said just then, it's incredibly powerful when it's done. So, I just implore people to try and, I guess, dig deep in regards to how they're actually feeling and make sure that they can find the courage to speak up.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important, and maybe not as important, but at minimum very interesting to me. My final question for you for today is, Mitch, what's your favorite dessert of all time? And it takes a lot of courage to be able to admit and select one of these.
Okay. I like some weird and obscure things, and I wasn't expecting this question, I'm not going to lie, but...
it's probably the hardest one of the whole podcast.
I actually love Portuguese tarts. Like, I feel like we might have had this chat before, but I love Portuguese tarts. Or
what is that for those playing at home that maybe don't know what a Portuguese tart is?
Jesus, you put me on the spot there. I probably don't even know myself. I know it's sort of like a caramelised custard based in a pastry bottom, with, I'm sure, a little bit of something in there that I'm yet to find out, but it's
mystery ingredient.
That's exactly right. And I'm sure for yourself it'd be jam donuts, no doubt.
I mean, I wouldn't limit myself just to jam, but I certainly can't wait to be able to have like a donut in a cafe soon, rather than ordering to my house, because the minimum you can order is 4, and as a person living by myself, that's very detrimental to have 4 in the house. They do not last long.
Yes, couldn't have them going to waste.
Now, before I let you go, please tell the good people at home about Mendel and what they can do to be involved.
Yeah, so Mendel's a non-profit social enterprise that myself and close friend Mark Losewitz started up about 18 months ago. Funnily enough, it was probably about 3 months prior to all this COVID stuff happening. And it's an apparel brand which wants to give back to the men's mental health space in a way that it's slightly different to anyone else sort of doing it out there, which is, I guess, through a fashion label which is quite minimal, quite subtle and discreet in its branding, which I guess kind of comforts that sort of young adolescent man who would be comfortable wearing something out in public, and that sort of being the segue into potentially a conversation with whoever recognises the brand or questions the T-shirt that he may be wearing at the time. So we sort of donate all of our funds from our profits from our sales onto different charities already doing good work in this space. And then we're also sort of running a Mendel Movement blog series where we're just trying to implement in some of these conversations that we're preaching and sort of putting them into action with people out in the community. So it's all online. It's at the moment we're sort of looking at branching out into some stores and obviously trying to grow the Mendel brand as much as possible. But at the moment it's just very much a platform and a voice for I guess all ages to be able to sort of appreciate prioritising your mental health and being able to support in a slightly different way.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just a fashion label. There's so much good content and information on the website in a myriad of like departments of mental health. And then I can also attest that the apparel is very comfortable. I don't know if this video will ever end up anywhere, but I'm currently wearing one of the jumpers and I would wear it even if it wasn't for a good cause. So it's definitely a worthy investment.
Thank you very much. It's always good to hear the positive feedback, because yes, we're forever trying to get better and I guess resonate with the Mendel community out there. So it's great to hear.
Yeah, you are doing incredible things, and we are lucky to have people like you in the community that are stepping up and having a platform for people to learn and grow and hopefully become a better version of themselves.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy. Very much appreciated.
Well, thank you so much, Mitch, for being with us today. And we will be releasing more Mind Time episodes across Mental Health Month, so watch out for those. And in the meantime, you can go and check out all of the good content on It's All Her. There's also a lot of great reading and stuff to do on that website. So that's your homework, everybody. You've got 2 websites to go and read up on. And if you do need any help, Lifeline and Beyond Blue are 2 wonderful resources. The number for Lifeline is 13 11 14, and the number for Beyond Blue is 1300 224 636.